Marcus didn't set out to cause trouble, he just wanted peace. After 20 years of service as a structural engineer traveling from site to site, he dreamed of one thing: a quiet home tucked away in the mountains. So when he stumbled upon an abandoned cabin listed for a fraction of its worth, he thought he'd found heaven. The house sat high above a sleepy mountain town in Colorado, overlooking a deep valley filled with pine and fog. It was old, logs darkened by time, windows cracked, ivy crawling up the porch, but it was solid. Marcus saw what others didn't: strong beams, real craftsmanship, a foundation that could outlast a century. He bought it with cash, restored the deed in his name, and spent months cleaning it up on weekends. By spring, the place looked alive again. Fresh paint, new wiring, sanded floors, even a stone path leading to a fire pit. He didn't live there full-time yet. His main job still kept him in Denver, but every time he came up to the mountains, he felt closer to peace. That was until the day he pulled into his driveway and saw smoke curling from the chimney. At first, Marcus thought maybe a forest ranger had stopped by, or a local neighbor was checking the property for him. But as he walked closer, he noticed something off. Children's toys were scattered on the porch. A woman's purse hung on the banister. And from inside came the sound of laughter and a television playing loudly. His heart started to pound. Marcus set down his bag and stepped up to the door. The old lock, the one he'd replaced himself, had been broken clean off. He opened the door and froze. There was a whole family inside. A blonde woman in her 40s was sitting on his couch eating popcorn, a man in cargo shorts stood in his kitchen rummaging through the fridge, and two teenagers were sprawled across the floor watching cartoons. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice calm but sharp. "What exactly are you doing in my house?" The woman turned around, startled at first, but her surprise vanished almost instantly, replaced by something else. That smug, self-righteous expression that Marcus recognized all too well. "Your house," she said, standing up and crossing her arms. "This is our home now. You can't just barge in like that." Marcus blinked in disbelief. "Your home, ma'am? I bought this property last year. I have the title deed and all the documents. You need to leave." The man in the kitchen, heavy-set, wearing a faded, Wa Mountain View t-shirt, came forward. "You don't talk to my wife like that," he barked. "She's the president of the homeowners association here, and this property's been abandoned for years. We've been taking care of it." Marcus looked around the living room. His furniture, his photos, his tools neatly stacked in the corner. "You mean trespassing in it," he said slowly. The woman, Karen, as Marcus soon learned, scoffed. "Listen, we thought this place was condemned. No one's lived here in a decade. When we saw it empty, we decided to fix it up and move in. You should be thanking us. We made it livable again." Marcus let out a dry laugh. "I made it livable. You broke into a private residence." Karen folded her arms tighter. "Well, if you really did buy it, we'll need to see proof. Until then, we're staying put. The law has jurisdiction in this area." Marcus stepped back, stunned. "There is no HOA here," he said firmly. "This is outside the Mountain View boundary. You can't just claim authority." "Oh, you'll find out how wrong you are," she snapped. "We've already filed paperwork to incorporate this section. We have squatters' rights now." Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed the sheriff's office. "Then let's let the law decide." Karen's eyes widened. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, glancing at her husband. "You can't call the police on a family." "You broke into my home," Marcus said. "You're lucky I didn't come armed." Within half an hour, a sheriff's deputy pulled up the gravel driveway. Marcus explained everything, showing him the deed and proof of purchase. The officer frowned, turning to Karen's husband. "Sir, you can't just move into someone's property without permission." Karen jumped in. "We didn't know. The place was abandoned, and the WA voted to maintain it. We've been paying dues for upkeep." The deputy sighed. "Ma'am, that doesn't make it yours. You need to pack up and leave immediately." Karen glared at Marcus like he'd personally ruined her life. "You people always think you can just come in and take whatever you want," she muttered under her breath. Marcus stiffened. He'd heard that tone before, that venom laced with entitlement. "The only person who took something here is you," he said quietly. But Karen wasn't done. As her family packed up, she kept ranting. "This isn't over. The wall will be hearing about this. You can't live up here without community approval. We'll make sure your permits are revoked." Marcus just smiled coldly. "I'll be waiting." Over the next few weeks, Marcus tried to move past the incident. He replaced the locks again, installed security cameras, and even put up signs warning against trespassers. But true to her word, Karen didn't let it go. He started getting letters, dozens of them, claiming violations of community standards. Fines for unapproved renovations, threats about noncompliance with wall landscaping rules. The kicker: Marcus's property wasn't even under their HOA's jurisdiction. When he ignored the letters, they escalated. One morning, he drove up to the cabin and found that someone had spray-painted eviction notice across his garage door. Another time, his mail was scattered all over the dirt road leading to his property. It didn't take a detective to figure out who was behind it. Karen had made it her personal mission to drive him off the mountain. But Marcus wasn't the type to be bullied. Not by paperwork, not by petty threats, and definitely not by a self-proclaimed HOA president who couldn't read a property map. He started documenting everything: photos, videos, timestamps, and every false claim. What Karen didn't know was that Marcus's cousin was a real estate attorney, and his best friend worked at the county clerk's office. So while Karen's family thought they could intimidate him, Marcus was quietly preparing something much bigger. Something that would make sure the Mountain View HOA regretted ever setting foot on his land again. And when he came back to the cabin the following weekend to set his plan in motion, what he found waiting for him on his porch made his blood run cold. Someone had been inside, again. Only this time, they hadn't just broken in. They'd left something behind. Marcus always believed that peace wasn't something you found, it was something you built. And after 20 years of designing skyscrapers and urban complexes across the country, he was done with noise, deadlines, and city politics. He wanted silence, trees, and space to breathe. So when he discovered an old, abandoned mountain house listed online for less than the price of a used car, he thought it was fate. The listing photos were terrible, grainy, tilted shots that showed a collapsed porch and cracked windows. But Marcus didn't care. He drove up the narrow winding road one Saturday morning, and when he stepped out of his truck, the crisp mountain air hit him like a blessing. The house sat on a gentle slope overlooking a forest valley, with snow-capped peaks beyond. It was quiet, no traffic, no neighbors, just the wind whispering through pine needles. He fell in love instantly. The place had been abandoned for nearly 15 years, owned by a bank that never bothered to maintain it. The locals said it used to belong to a retired ranger before his family moved away. But Marcus saw potential where others saw ruin. The log walls were weathered but strong. The roof needed replacing, the floors needed sanding, and the wiring was ancient, but structurally, it was a masterpiece waiting to be revived. After a few months of paperwork and negotiation, Marcus bought the property outright. No loans, no liens. He even double-checked the county maps to make sure the land was outside any neighborhood or HOA jurisdiction. The last thing he wanted was some overbearing committee telling him what color to paint his shutters. Every weekend, he drove up from Denver with tools in his truck. He fixed the porch, replaced the windows, and installed new lighting. He even built a stone path from the driveway to the front door, laying each slab by hand. It was hard work, but the kind that healed him. When the sun dipped behind the mountains, he'd sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and just listen to the trees, the river below, the distant call of an owl. It was his sanctuary. By early summer, Marcus was finally ready to move some furniture in. He planned to stay for a week, finish the final touches, and maybe invite a few friends up for a small celebration. But when he pulled into the gravel driveway that Friday evening, something was wrong. There was smoke coming from the chimney. Marcus frowned. He hadn't hired anyone to work on the house. His nearest neighbor was 3 miles away. He got out of the truck slowly, scanning the area. The front gate was open. Children's bikes leaned against the porch. The sound of a television echoed faintly from inside. His gut twisted. He climbed the porch steps and noticed the lock on the door. His brand new deadbolt had been smashed clean off. He took a breath and pushed the door open. Inside, the place looked lived in. A coat draped over the arm of his couch. Plates and cups scattered on the kitchen counter. The smell of popcorn filled the air. And sitting right there on his sofa was a blonde woman in yoga pants, her legs up, eating chips like she owned the place. When she saw Marcus, she jumped slightly, then scowled as if he were the intruder. "Excuse me, can I help you?" she snapped. Marcus blinked, confused but controlled. "Yeah, you can start by telling me why you're in my house." The woman straightened. "Your house? I think you're mistaken. This is our home." Before Marcus could answer, a man appeared from the kitchen, holding a beer. He was heavy-set, wearing cargo shorts and a t-shirt that read, Mountain View HOA. Behind him, two teenagers peeked out from a hallway, watching silently. Marcus looked around, making sure he wasn't hallucinating. His tools were there. His framed photo of his mother still hung by the fireplace. It was his house. "Listen," he said carefully. "I bought this place legally last year. I have the deed, I pay the taxes, and you're trespassing. You need to leave." The woman scoffed. "Don't talk to me like that. I'm Karen Fletcher, president of the Mountain View Homeowners Association. This property was abandoned for years, and our HOA voted to reclaim and restore it. We've invested time and money cleaning it up." Marcus gave a humorless laugh. "You mean breaking into it?" Karen crossed her arms. "Watch your tone. The HOA has jurisdiction here. You can't just waltz in and claim property without going through community channels. We maintain this area." Marcus shook his head. "There are no community channels here. This house is outside your development. I checked the maps myself." Her husband stepped forward, puffing his chest. "You're mistaken. My wife handles the property boundaries. We've filed to extend our association limits. Until that's finalized, this place falls under HOA care." Marcus's patience thinned. "You can't just decide that. You're trespassing on private land." Karen glared. "If you really own it, show us proof. Otherwise, we're not leaving. We have rights as caretakers." Marcus sighed and pulled out his phone. "Fine, let's get someone who can confirm that." He called the county sheriff. Karen's face twisted in disbelief. "You're calling the police? On a family?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "Because this family broke into my house." 30 minutes later, a sheriff's deputy arrived, a tall man with a tired expression, clearly familiar with Karen. When Marcus explained the situation and showed his deed, the deputy turned to the couple. "Ma'am, sir, you can't occupy someone's private property," he said firmly. Karen launched into a tirade. "You don't understand. The HOA authorized this. We thought it was abandoned." The deputy shook his head. "That doesn't matter. You need to pack your things and leave immediately." Her husband started gathering bags while muttering curses under his breath. Karen stood on the porch, fuming. "You'll regret this," she hissed at Marcus. "You think you can just move up here and ignore the community? We have standards. We'll make sure you're cited for every violation possible." Marcus looked her dead in the eye. "Do what you have to do. But next time you step foot on my land, it'll be trespassing." She stormed off, her kids trailing behind, and within an hour, they were gone. Marcus locked the door, sat down on the couch, and exhaled deeply. He thought it was over. He was wrong. 2 days later, he got a letter in the mail from Mountain View HOA Enforcement Committee. It accused him of unauthorized renovations and failure to maintain community standards. Then came more letters, warnings, fake fines, even a notice claiming his home violated HOA noise restrictions. Marcus ignored them at first, but then things got personal. Someone slashed his tires. His mailbox was ripped off its post. One morning, he found the words, "You don't belong here," spray painted on his garage door. That's when he realized this wasn't just harassment, it was war. But Marcus wasn't the type to run. He documented every letter, every bit of vandalism, and every threat. What Karen didn't know was that Marcus's cousin was one of the top real estate attorneys in the state. And his friend at the county clerk's office. He had access to every zoning document in the area. Karen had no legal ground. Her jurisdiction ended half a mile down the mountain. So while she played dirty, Marcus started building a case. He'd been patient, quiet, and respectful, but when it came to protecting what was his, he was relentless. And just when he thought he'd seen the worst of it, Marcus drove up to the cabin one weekend and saw something that stopped him cold. The front door was open again. His camera feed had been cut. And sitting in the middle of his porch was a folded note with one line scrawled across it.